You were paid to raise him, not to pretend you are the mother of a billionaire. Vanessa Hale said it in the middle of the grand hall at the Whitmore estate, in front of dozens of employees, decorators, and members of the media team preparing for the engagement celebration. Then she placed Evelyn Carter's old apron into a box, as though she were throwing away 33 years of devotion. You are fired, effective immediately. I want you gone before the press arrives. The hall became so quiet that everyone could hear tape being pulled from a dispenser in the corner. Evelyn stood straight, her calloused hands folded in front of her. At 67, she had lived through funerals, bankruptcy, and countless winters inside that house. But never once had she been treated like a stain that needed to be removed before important guests arrived. She did not beg to keep her job. Who will stay with Sophie when she wakes up from a nightmare? Vanessa adjusted the cuff of her silk blouse. Sophie needs to learn how to live without depending on an elderly servant. The new nanny has qualifications in child psychology and will follow my rules. Small footsteps sounded on the staircase. Grandma Evie! Sophie Whitmore ran down the stairs and wrapped her arms tightly around Evelyn. The 9-year-old had lost both of her parents in an accident and could only fall back asleep after nightmares when Evelyn sat beside her bed and counted each breath with her. Vanessa signaled to the woman wearing the new uniform. Take Sophie upstairs. No! Sophie clung to Evelyn's clothes. Grandma Evie is not a servant. She is my family. Vanessa crouched down, keeping the smile she used for the cameras that were testing the lighting. Uncle Adrian and I are about to build a new family. You need to learn to respect the decisions adults make. The new nanny peeled Sophie's fingers away from Evelyn one by one. Evelyn did not pull the girl back because she knew struggling would only make Sophie panic more. She spoke gently as Sophie was taken away. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, and breathe out for 4. I am still here until you feel calm. Vanessa waited until Sophie was out of sight before sliding a stack of papers across the marble table. Adrian agreed to this. He is in Tokyo, so he asked me to handle it for him. On top was an email supposedly written by Adrian stating that Miss Carter should retire before the engagement celebration. Evelyn read it twice. Since Adrian was 6 years old, he had never called her Miss Carter. In front of other people, he called her Evelyn. When the two of them were alone, he used a name that belonged only to their relationship. But Evelyn did not accuse Vanessa. A feeling was not evidence. I want to hear this from Adrian. He is finishing the most important deal of the year. Are you really going to interfere with that because you cannot accept that you are no longer useful? Several employees lowered their eyes. Rosa Mendez took half a step forward, then stopped. Vanessa had made everyone understand that anyone who challenged her could lose a job. The second stack of papers was a severance agreement with a check large enough to support Evelyn for years. In exchange, Evelyn had to surrender all access to the estate, agree not to contact Sophie privately, promise not to speak to the media about the Whitmore family, and confirm in writing that she had only ever been a paid employee. Evelyn stared at the final line longer than the others. You want me to sign a document saying that the last 33 years were nothing more than a job? I want clear boundaries. Adrian is grateful to you, but gratitude does not turn a nanny into family. Evelyn picked up the check. Then she placed it back on top of the papers and pushed everything toward Vanessa. My love for that child is not something you can buy back from me. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Then you will leave with nothing. I am willing to leave this job peacefully if that is truly what Adrian wants. I am only asking to continue visiting Sophie. That was the moment Vanessa could still have stopped. She could have allowed Evelyn to keep a relationship that threatened no one's wealth or position. Instead, Vanessa turned toward Rosa. Have the locksmith replace every lock in the east wing before 6 o'clock. Revoke her access card. From today forward, every contact with Sophie must be approved by me. Evelyn removed the card she had used for more than 20 years and placed it on the table. She had always imagined that when Adrian married and Sophie grew older, she would slowly step back so neither of them would feel indebted to her. She had never imagined being erased from the family before she was even allowed to say goodbye. Inside her room in the East Wing, Evelyn packed several changes of clothes, her Bible, and the sewing box Margaret had once given her. Everything else had become so much a part of the house that Evelyn could no longer tell where her belongings ended and the Whitmore household began. Before she finished packing, she went to Sophie's room. On the bedside table, Evelyn placed the girl's allergy medication, already sorted by day, along with a list of emergency phone numbers and instructions for recognizing the beginning of a panic attack. She replaced the batteries in the nightlight and tucked Sophie's old stuffed bear beneath the blanket in exactly the place where the girl always reached for it when she woke up. In the bottom drawer, Evelyn's fingers touched a small velvet pouch. Inside was the brass key Margaret had given her several days before she died. 3 characters were engraved into the metal. M.W. Ba. "Keep it until the day you need to remember where you belong," Margaret had told her. For years, Evelyn assumed it was only the key to a keepsake box that had been lost. She had never tried to find the lock because at the time, the only thing that mattered was helping 6-year-old Adrian survive the grief of losing his mother. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Rosa was holding the apron Vanessa had ordered thrown away. "I am sorry," Rosa said. "I should have spoken up downstairs. You have 2 children in college. I do not blame you for being afraid of losing your job." Evelyn folded the apron but let Rosa keep it. "Just keep an eye on Sophie. She is very good at hiding a panic attack when she thinks the adults around her are busy." Rosa looked at the key in Evelyn's hand. "I have never seen that before. I never knew what it opened either." In the hallway, Sophie slipped away from the new nanny. She was carrying a photograph of Adrian, Evelyn, and herself in the kitchen at Christmas. Sophie tucked the picture into the side pocket of Evelyn's suitcase. "So you will not forget how to come home." Evelyn knelt and hugged her. "A home is more than an address. I will not forget you." Vanessa appeared and pulled Sophie to her feet. "I said no private contact." Her eyes stopped on the photograph. Vanessa snatched it from the suitcase and walked into the family room, where dozens of framed pictures documented Adrian's childhood. In one photograph, Margaret stood beside Evelyn like a sister, while a young Adrian wrapped his arms around both women. "Take down every photograph that includes her," Vanessa ordered. "Guests do not need to see household staff in private family pictures." Evelyn watched Vanessa pull the photograph from its frame. She had remained silent because she did not want to interfere with Adrian's happiness. But in that moment, Evelyn understood that her silence was no longer protecting the family. It was helping someone else rewrite that family however she wanted. A few minutes later, Evelyn walked through the front door carrying one small suitcase. Late autumn rain blurred the red brick houses of Beacon Hill. Vanessa had sent the driver elsewhere, so Evelyn descended the stone steps alone. No one came to say goodbye except Rosa, hidden behind a curtain, and Sophie, crying behind an upstairs window. Evelyn looked up and pressed one hand against her heart like a promise. Then she walked away. Behind her, the locksmith's tools struck in cold, metallic rhythms. The apartment Evelyn still rented was a 1-bedroom unit on the 3rd floor of an old building. She placed the key marked M.W. Ba beside a stack of bills and a notice showing the small payment deposited into her account every quarter. Evelyn had always assumed it was part of the pension James Whitmore had arranged for her. Her phone rang before she even had time to open the suitcase. "Evelyn, this is Daniel Brooks." The attorney's voice sounded more tense than usual. "The Whitmore Family Trust Management System just issued an alert. A beneficiary's residential rights have been violated. Did you leave the East Wing today?" Evelyn looked around the unfamiliar room. "You have the wrong person, Daniel. I am a former employee. I am not a beneficiary." On the other end of the call, she heard a filing drawer open. Daniel entered a code and retrieved a packet Margaret had sealed years earlier. He searched through the employee list. Evelyn's name was not there. Her name appeared under a different section. "No, I did not call the wrong person." Daniel stared at the document and spoke slowly. "Evelyn, you do not merely have the right to enter that house." He paused. "According to this document, none of them had the legal right to throw you out. None of them had the right to throw you out." Daniel's words made Evelyn stare at the brass key marked M.W. Ba on the table as though it had suddenly become something belonging to another person. For 33 years at the Whitmore estate, she had always believed the room in the East Wing was simply a place the family allowed her to use out of gratitude. No one had ever told her that living there was her legal right. Daniel arrived at the apartment carrying a copy of the Whitmore Family Trust that Margaret had created before her death. This document gives you lifetime residency rights in the East Wing, he explained. But the original stock amendment and several additional provisions are kept inside a safe deposit box at Boston Heritage Bank. The box requires 2 keys to open. Daniel took out a small steel key. Evelyn placed her brass key beside it. Both carried the initials MW, and the number 3 matched the safe deposit box number listed in the records. Margaret gave you half of the authority needed to open that box, Daniel said. Evelyn closed the velvet pouch. I do not want to fight Adrian over property. I only want to see Sophie, recover my letters and photographs of Margaret, and collect the personal belongings still in my room. If this were only an inheritance dispute, we could negotiate privately. But forcing you out of the house triggered a protective provision in the trust. Every transaction involving the Whitmore Care Trust and the family household budget must automatically be frozen for an audit. The preliminary review showed that 3 contracts for decorations, public relations, and renovations had been paid from the family budget. The companies receiving the money were directly connected to Hale Luxury Group, and the contract prices were significantly higher than market rates. If Vanessa violated your residency rights by mistake, she can correct it immediately, Daniel said. If she knew about the trust provision and continued moving money anyway, that becomes a very different matter, he called Vanessa in front of Evelyn. While this is being verified, Mrs. Carter must be allowed to return to the East Wing and access her personal belongings, Daniel said. No records may be destroyed, and no additional rights may be changed. Vanessa's voice came coldly through the speaker. She is exploiting Adrian's feelings to make a property claim. I am not allowing a former employee back into that house just because she found an old key. I am warning you in my capacity as counsel to the trust, and I am protecting the family I am about to marry into. The call ended. It was the second time Vanessa had been given an opportunity to stop without losing face publicly. She still chose confrontation. The next morning, a tabloid headline appeared. Disgruntled former nanny threatens billionaire family. The article omitted Evelyn's legal residency rights and described her as a woman who could not accept that Adrian was creating a new family. By noon, reporters crowded outside the apartment building, shouting Evelyn's name and asking how much money she wanted to disappear. Daniel suggested moving her somewhere secure. Evelyn was more concerned about the other tenants being disturbed. I can request a restraining order and ask the property manager to increase security, Daniel said. Please do not let this cost the doorman or the cleaning staff their jobs. They did not cause any of this. Daniel also asked the court to appoint an independent auditor and outside supervisor to avoid any conflict of interest. Meanwhile, Adrian called from Tokyo as the international deal entered its final day. Vanessa appeared exhausted in exactly the right amount. Evelyn chose to retire for health reasons, she told him. She did not want to bother you while you were dealing with this. Daniel is turning a misunderstanding into a legal dispute. Adrian was silent for a moment. Is she all right? She wants to be left alone. He believed his fiancée because Evelyn had never complained or asked him to abandon his work for her. Her lifelong habit of saying she was fine had become the curtain hiding the truth. Evelyn looked at Adrian's name on her phone several times but never pressed the call button. She knew the deal could protect thousands of jobs. She told herself she could endure a few more days. But deep inside, she was also afraid that Adrian might confirm he had truly chosen a new family that no longer included her. At the estate, Sophie began waking in the middle of the night. The new nanny found her sitting on the floor, holding the old stuffed bear and counting her breathing incorrectly. Vanessa entered the room, irritated because there was a photo session scheduled for the following morning. If you start calling me Mom, it might help us feel more like a family, she said. Sophie looked up through tears. My mom died. You cannot take her name just because you took down Grandma Evie's pictures. Vanessa closed the bedroom door harder than necessary. The next afternoon at Boston Heritage Bank, the branch manager and a notary verified everyone's identity and recorded the opening of the safe deposit box. Daniel's key turned the first lock. Evelyn's MW, Ba key, opened the second. Safe deposit box number 3 slid out with a heavy metallic sound. Inside was a sealed letter from Margaret, an accounting ledger from the year Whitmore Technologies nearly went bankrupt, a signed statement from James, the residency amendment, and an empty velvet tray labeled Stock Certificate Evelyn Carter. Daniel did not touch the tray. He asked the bank manager to formally document that the certificate was missing. "It may have been removed before the box was converted to a two-key system," he said. "We do not yet know who removed it or when." Evelyn opened the accounting ledger. A large payment had entered the company on the exact day the bank was preparing to close its credit line. The amount matched the sale price of the small house Evelyn had once owned in Cambridge. 33 years earlier, the company had no longer been able to make payroll. Evelyn had been engaged at the time and planning to leave Boston. She sold the house her parents had left her and gave all of the money to James, asking only that he keep the employees with families from losing their jobs. "I was supposed to get married that spring," Evelyn said. "But one night, 6-year-old Adrian sat outside my bedroom door until morning. He was afraid that if he fell asleep, I would disappear too, just like his mother." She looked at the payment recorded in the ledger, and her voice softened. "I told myself I stayed because he needed me. That was true, but it was not the whole truth. I was also afraid that if I left Adrian, there would be no one left who needed me. I used caring for him to fill something empty inside myself." Daniel did not turn the confession into weakness. "You may have needed a child too, but you were still the person who chose not to abandon him." In the margin of the accounting page, James had written, "This contribution must be repaid in equity, not gratitude." The accompanying signed statement clearly said Evelyn's capital contribution was to be converted into voting shares and added to Margaret's trust. Daniel opened Margaret's letter. She thanked Evelyn for staying with Adrian. But the binding showed that the final page had been removed. It could have contained the percentage of shares or instructions regarding the missing certificate. "We have the residency rights, the accounting ledger, and James's signed acknowledgement," Daniel said. "But if we want to enforce the stock rights without a prolonged dispute, we need either the certificate or the missing final page of this letter." Back at the estate, Sophie overheard employees talking about old family photographs that had been moved into storage. She decided to look for the family movie reels so she could send something to Evelyn. Sophie brought her tablet because she had been filming behind-the-scenes footage for the engagement celebration. Inside Margaret's old camera case, she found a blue envelope. Across the front, someone had written, "Deliver directly to Evelyn Carter." One corner of the paper carried an MW, seal matching the mark on Evelyn's key. Sophie had just pressed the envelope against her chest when Vanessa entered. "What are you doing in here?" "This letter belongs to Grandma Evie. She taught me that you are not supposed to hide someone else's mail." Vanessa saw the seal and snatched the envelope from the girl's hands. "This is private adult business. You are not going to mention this to anyone." Vanessa did not notice that the tablet sitting on a wooden crate was still recording. A backup icon flashed on the screen as the video automatically uploaded to the family account. Sophie ran back to her room, locked the door, and used her child-safe watch to call Evelyn. "Grandma Evelyn?" she whispered. "I found a letter from Grandma Margaret, but Vanessa took it." A violent knock sounded against the bedroom door. The call disconnected. At that exact moment, Daniel's computer issued an alert from the corporate records administrator. He read the notification. His expression changed immediately. The stock certificate issued in Evelyn Carter's name had just been submitted for cancellation. The stated reason was, beneficiary deceased. The request to cancel Evelyn's stock certificate was submitted only hours before Adrian returned to Boston. Daniel immediately froze the corporate record. Vanessa understood that if Adrian saw Evelyn before the engagement party, the blue envelope and the trust documents could destroy everything she had arranged. That afternoon, Evelyn received a text message from Sophie's number. "Grandma Evie, I cannot breathe. I will not wear the dress unless you come. Please come to the Grand Commonwealth Hotel." Evelyn read every word twice. Sophie normally used her child-safe watch, not Vanessa's phone. The message could be a trap, but the panic attack could also be real. Daniel objected when Evelyn reached for her coat. "Vanessa has already taken documents, and someone just tried to declare you dead. You should not go there alone. If Sophie is frightened, I cannot abandon her just to protect myself." Daniel agreed to follow her, but warned her carefully. "Do not sign anything. Do not accept gifts or property. And do not let your luggage leave your sight." The Grand Commonwealth Hotel glowed beneath crystal lights. Luxury cars lined the entrance while Evelyn walked through the lobby in her old coat, almost disappearing among evening gowns and custom-tailored suits. Sophie ran out of the dressing room the moment she saw her. "Grandma Evie!" The girl wrapped her arms around Evelyn, breathing so quickly that she could barely finish a sentence. Evelyn knelt and placed both hands on Sophie's shoulders. "Look at me. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, then breathe out very slowly." After several rounds, the girl's shoulders gradually relaxed. "Vanessa took the blue envelope," Sophie whispered. "She told me not to talk about the key. I did not send the message asking you to come." Evelyn had been right about the trap, but she did not leave. The zipper on Sophie's dress had jammed, pulling the fabric tightly across her chest. Evelyn took out a small sewing kit, opened part of the seam, and adjusted the dress so the girl could breathe comfortably. "Adults disagreeing is not your fault," she said. "You do not have to prove you love one person by hating someone else." Vanessa appeared in the doorway with 2 photographers behind her. "How touching," she said, as though she had arranged the reunion herself. "I invited Adrian's former nanny as a gesture of appreciation. The Whitmore family has always treated the people who served them with kindness." Vanessa seated Evelyn at the staff table beside the kitchen entrance. Evelyn did not object to the seat. What hurt more was the family video playing across the large screen. Adrian's childhood appeared through birthdays and Christmas celebrations, but every frame that included Evelyn had been removed. In a display near the stage, Margaret's pearl necklace rested inside a glass case. Evelyn recognized the silver clasp. She had repaired it with a small line of red thread the night before Margaret wore it for the last time. Rosa was reviewing the staff list when she saw Vanessa unlock the display case and remove the necklace. "Would you like me to call the jewelry coordinator?" Rosa asked. "No, I will use it during the announcement." Vanessa carried the necklace toward the dressing room. Rosa did not follow her, but her eyes remained on the empty display case longer than usual. Inside the dressing room, Evelyn's suitcase sat beside a chair. Vanessa looked around, opened the side pocket, slipped the necklace beneath a shawl, and closed the zipper. On the vanity table, Sophie's tablet was still recording behind-the-scenes footage. The camera captured Vanessa's hand, the necklace, and the exact place where she hid it inside the suitcase. The cloud backup icon flashed before the screen went dark. Sophie returned to retrieve the tablet and saw the necklace disappear into the bag. Vanessa immediately snatched the device from her. "You saw it wrong. You put Grandma Margaret's necklace in Grandma Evie's suitcase. If you keep saying that, people will think Evelyn taught you to lie." Vanessa kept the tablet. But the footage had already been backed up to the family account, where only Adrian had authority to verify the original file. When the party began, Vanessa took the stage. Less than 10 minutes later, she pretended to receive an urgent message. "Margaret Whitmore's family necklace is missing. Because it is an irreplaceable heirloom, I have no choice but to ask security to inspect staff and personal belongings before anyone leaves." The ballroom doors were held closed. Whispers spread across the tables. Vanessa ordered the staff areas searched first. Then she stopped in front of Evelyn. "I am very sorry, but fairness has to apply to everyone." Evelyn stood. "I have nothing to hide. Search my suitcase in front of the cameras and document everyone present." A security officer placed a suitcase on a table. When the side pocket was opened, the strand of pearls slid onto a velvet cloth. Every camera immediately turned toward Evelyn. Vanessa covered her mouth with one hand. "I tried to treat you with kindness, but after hearing about the trust, you became greedy." Evelyn looked at the clasp wrapped with red thread. She knew it was Margaret's real necklace. She also knew that finding it inside her suitcase made any explanation sound weak. A police officer assigned to event security was called over. Evelyn did not resist when he asked her to step away from the suitcase. "Please record this in your report," she said. "My luggage was searched in front of a crowd, without my attorney present, and the suitcase had been outside my sight while it was inside the dressing room." "You are already trying to create an excuse," Vanessa said. "I am protecting the truth, even while you are trying to turn me into a criminal." Sophie ran toward the stage. "Grandma Evie did not take it. Vanessa put the necklace in her suitcase. My tablet recorded everything." Vanessa grabbed the girl by the shoulders. "Evelyn has manipulated Sophie.
Get her out of here before she hurts herself.
Sophie struggled to pull away, but the new nanny dragged her toward the door. Evelyn wanted to follow her. The police officer ordered her to remain where she was. Rosa stepped closer to Vanessa and lowered her voice. "I saw you holding that necklace before anyone reported it missing. You can still say you found it somewhere else and end this." It was Vanessa's final way out. All she had to do was stop before Evelyn was arrested. But Vanessa looked toward the cameras and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I expect the police to follow the law. Nobody should escape responsibility simply because she once took care of Adrian." Rosa stepped back. The fear of losing her job disappeared from her face. In its place was a quiet but unmistakable decision. She was going to testify. Daniel arrived in the security room just as the cloud system sent him a copy of the video. The thumbnail showed Vanessa standing beside Evelyn's suitcase, but the original time-stamped file was locked behind an authentication code controlled by the family account owner. "I need Adrian," Daniel said. Without his verification code, Vanessa's side can claim the copy was altered. Adrian had just landed at Boston Airport earlier than scheduled. As he left the terminal, he received a call saying Evelyn had been arrested for stealing his mother's necklace. "Which necklace?" he asked. "Margaret Whitmore's pearls. They were found inside Evelyn's suitcase." The caller did not know that Margaret had once placed the necklace in Evelyn's care. Evelyn was the only person Margaret had trusted to open the clasp and repair the red thread. She had no reason to steal something Margaret had already entrusted to her. "Drive straight to the Grand Commonwealth," Adrian told the driver. Then he called Daniel. "Preserve the scene. Nobody deletes data or removes the necklace. I will send the authentication code." Inside the ballroom, the police were preparing to escort Evelyn out. Sophie was crying and trying to run toward her. Evelyn lifted her head even as one wrist was being held. "Do not be afraid," she told the girl. "The truth does not disappear just because someone tells a lie more loudly." The ballroom doors suddenly opened. Adrian walked in, still wearing the suit from his long flight. He passed Vanessa. He passed the business partners watching him. Then he stopped between Evelyn and the police officer. Evelyn froze. She had been waiting for this moment since the day she was forced out of the estate. "Preserve everything exactly as it is," Adrian said. "My attorney is opening the original data now. Nobody is reaching a conclusion before the evidence is examined." Then Adrian turned toward Evelyn. The cold expression of the chief executive officer disappeared. He wrapped his arms around her in front of every guest in the room, like the 6-year-old boy who had once held onto the only person who did not leave him. Vanessa stepped forward. "Adrian, you are letting emotion." He moved in front of Evelyn and looked directly at his fiancée. "Take your hands off my mother." Then his voice carried across the entire ballroom. "And nobody leaves this room until the truth is made public." "Take your hands off my mother." Adrian's words echoed through the ballroom, where Evelyn had just been treated like a greedy former servant. He stood between her and the police officer, but he did not use his power to demand that anyone believe him. He asked them to look at the evidence. "Please do not take her anywhere yet," Adrian told the officer. "Preserve the suitcase, the necklace, and every device exactly as they are. We have original data that needs to be examined here." Vanessa stepped forward. Her face had gone pale, but her voice remained controlled. "You just spent 14 hours on a flight, and your emotions are affecting your judgment. Evelyn raised you, so you cannot look at this objectively." Adrian turned toward her. "Yes, I care about her. That is exactly why I am not going to decide for myself that she is innocent or that you are guilty. The data will answer that." Daniel entered with members of the hotel security team. Adrian read the authentication code from his phone, unlocked access to the family account, and instructed them to display the original cloud file on the large screen. The timestamp showed that the recording had started before the necklace was reported missing. On the screen, Vanessa appeared inside the dressing room. She opened the side pocket of Evelyn's suitcase, placed the pearl necklace beneath the shawl, and closed the zipper. There was no blind spot. There was no missing section. The hand wearing her engagement ring was clearly visible as she moved out of the frame. Whispers spread across the ballroom. "Sophie could have placed the tablet there to create this situation," Vanessa said. "Or the video could have been altered after it was backed up." Daniel did not respond with emotion. He presented the file hash, the backup logs, the exact time the device connected to the network, and confirmation from the hotel camera system. The records showed that the video had been uploaded before Vanessa announced that the necklace was missing. It had never been modified. The tablet recorded what happened, Daniel said. It did not create what happened. Rosa stepped out from the line of employees. Her hands were trembling, but her voice no longer carried hesitation. I saw Vanessa open the display case and take the necklace before anyone reported it missing. She told me she was going to use it during the announcement. Then I saw her walk toward the dressing room. Vanessa stared at Rosa. You should remember who pays your salary. The Whitmore family pays me to manage the staff, Rosa replied. Nobody pays me to give false testimony. The police officer ordered Evelyn's restraint removed. Her status changed from suspect to complainant in an investigation involving planted evidence and a false report. He sealed the necklace, the suitcase, and copies of the digital records for further investigation. Sophie ran to Evelyn and wrapped her arms around her. This time, nobody pulled the girl away. Vanessa stepped back toward the stage. This is still a private family matter. It has nothing to do with the trust or the company. Daniel opened the emergency legal file. You made it a trust matter when you forced a beneficiary out of her legal residence and then accused her of committing a crime involving family property. In front of the guests and representatives of the Whitmore Technologies Board, Daniel announced the provisions that had now been verified. Evelyn held lifetime residency rights in the East Wing. Nobody could force her to leave without a court order. She owned 8% of the company's voting shares and had oversight rights involving the Whitmore Care Trust. Every family transaction approved by Vanessa during the dispute was frozen pending an independent audit. 8%? Vanessa asked. A nanny? Daniel looked directly at her. A legal investor. He placed the accounting ledger, James's signed acknowledgement, and Margaret's letter on the podium. The missing final page of the letter was inside the blue envelope Vanessa had taken from Sophie. Police recovered it from Vanessa's document bag in the presence of the hotel attorney. Daniel opened the letter and read, Dear Evelyn, if you are reading this, then I am no longer there to protect the promise between us. Thank you for staying with Adrian when I could not. You were never my replacement. You became the mother who continued the love I was forced to leave unfinished. Margaret confirmed that Evelyn had sold the only house she owned to save the company and instructed that the money be converted into equity rather than recorded as a gift. James's signed statement showed that before his death, he had added 8% of the company's voting shares to Margaret's trust for Evelyn. The small payment Evelyn received every quarter had never been a pension. It was her own dividend income. Adrian looked down at the accounting ledger. The company carrying his family name had survived its darkest financial crisis partly because of the woman who had just been seated beside the kitchen door and dismissed as hired help. He turned toward Evelyn in front of hundreds of guests. Mom, I am sorry I made you prove that you belonged in this family. Evelyn looked at the man she had raised. She did not offer him easy forgiveness simply because he had just defended her. I love you, Adrian, but you treated my strength as a reason not to protect me. You handed control of the house and Sophie to someone else and assumed I would always be fine. Your absence created the space for this to happen. Adrian did not defend himself by saying he had been busy or deceived. You are right. I mistook your ability to endure pain for proof that you could not be hurt. I will not ask you to come back and pretend none of this happened. He removed the engagement ring from his hand and placed it on the table in front of Vanessa. The wedding is over. Not because Evelyn won and you lost, but because I cannot build a family with someone who plants evidence against an innocent woman and threatens a child. Vanessa was instructed to leave the event with her attorney and cooperate with the investigation. Adrian did not allow his communications team to release a retaliatory statement or expose her private life. Vanessa's consequences would come from conduct supported by evidence, not from the financial power of a man she had almost married. The audit conducted over the following weeks uncovered 3 inflated contracts connected to Hale Luxury Group and multiple fees with no corresponding services. Vanessa came under investigation for planting evidence, filing a false report, and financial fraud. Losing the engagement was only a personal consequence. Her legal responsibility came from the choices she had made herself. The Whitmore Technologies Board invited Evelyn to accept a seat as a shareholder representative. She did not accept immediately. "I want a transparent appointment process, an independent review of qualifications, and safeguards against conflicts of interest," she said. "I cannot criticize family privilege and then use that same privilege for myself." Daniel also acknowledged that overly restrictive confidentiality provisions had prevented Evelyn from being properly informed about her own rights. He proposed a system requiring direct annual confirmation to every beneficiary so that nobody would ever again live like an employee on property that legally belonged in part to them. Once Evelyn's position was confirmed through a transparent process, she used her dividends to establish the Margaret Evelyn Foundation. The foundation provided health insurance support for nannies and caregivers, legal assistance for exploited domestic workers, temporary care services for families raising orphan children, and scholarships for older women seeking new vocational training. Rosa became the employee representative on the Worker Protection Board. Adrian reformed both the estate and the company. Family members were no longer permitted to approve contracts involving their own interests. Domestic employees received written contracts, insurance coverage, and access to an independent complaint process. Sophie continued psychological therapy and was given her own child advocate so that her voice could never again be dismissed simply because of her age. Evelyn returned to the estate, but she did not return to the small room once assigned to the household staff. She moved into the East Wing under her legal residency rights, chose her own furniture, and kept her own key. She did not live there because Adrian allowed her to. She stayed because she chose to. 6 months later, the same grand hall where Evelyn had been fired was rearranged for the first gathering of the Margaret Evelyn Foundation. There was no red carpet. The rows of chairs were filled with nannies, nurses, caregivers, and domestic workers who had spent years believing that nobody saw the work they did. Sophie played a new video. In it, Adrian burned the sauce, Evelyn laughed, and Sophie stood between them kneading dough. There was no stage. There were no wealthy guests. There was only an ordinary family dinner. When the video ended, Adrian turned toward Evelyn. "Mom, would you like to say a few words?" This time, Evelyn did not avoid the name. She walked forward and placed the old brass key marked MW Bar beside the new key to the East Wing. The old key represented the promise Margaret had left behind. The new one represented the right to choose that Evelyn had finally reclaimed for herself. A mother is not created by a name written on a birth certificate. Sometimes, a mother is the person who stayed when a child's entire world fell apart.